Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Tactical Review. So today we're going to take a look at a new acquisition I've gotten. It's not exactly an unboxing because of the way that I purchased it, but what we're going to take a look at today is the Brownell BRN-180s. It's the short pistol length upper receiver from Brownell's, obviously. And it's not an unboxing because, once again, I purchased this as a separate upper and then I put it on a Palmetto State Armory EPT pistol lower with the SBA-4. So you have a lot of options there. Obviously, it fits on a standard AR-15 lower. But let's take a look into this and kind of talk about what it is, kind of my reason for buying it. So what the BRN-180 is Brownell's, it's kind of part of their retro line where they're reintroducing classic AR rifles and pistol variants using, just bringing them up to the modern time. Some of them are one-to-one replicas, and then some of them are like this. Now, I'm going to just do a quick overview of what the AR-18/180 was. If you really want to get into the history of that, I seem to recall that both Military Arms Channel and Forgotten Weapons have great videos on those. But just as a 30,000 foot overview, the AR-180 was a stamped receiver, a firearm that used a gas system. It's actually a piston driven gas system, and then the recoil assembly is captive within the upper instead of requiring an extension tube. Part of the concept was to be a less expensive alternative to the AR-15. Unfortunately, I don't think that it ever saw any kind of wide deployment and sort of fell by the wayside in history. So what the AR-180 is a milled, I believe it's milled. If it's forged, I'll include that somewhere on screen. But we've got it's not a stamped sheet metal upper receiver, I guess is what I'm getting at. We've got an updated M-LOK free float handguard here. It's actually fairly quickly removable. We may look at that later. It is still piston operated. It has an adjustable gas system. And then the recoil assembly is still captive in the upper. As a matter of fact, on this lower, I don't know if you see in there, but I've removed the buffer tube because I do intend to eventually put a folding adapter on here. I have one on, I have an SB Tactical side fold adapter on order. If you've looked for those, you know that they can be difficult to find, and so in upcoming videos we will compare that actually to the US machine gun side fold adapter that I've got on the Palmetto State AKV. You can see here that it does actually have a rubber buffer to prevent receiver damage from a side fold rear stock or rear brace. Brownell does have an a BRN-180 specific lower that just has a section of 1913 rail on the back. And there's other companies that do the same. There are thread-in 1913 adapters for a standard AR-15 lower. You just really get a lot of choice on this because, once again, you don't actually have to have the buffer in the receiver extension. So anyway, though we did not take this out of the box, you are actually going to see the very first shots with this firearm. I have some footage out of the Palmetto State Armory 16-inch Freedom AR-15 I have some chronograph footage of the Palmetto State Armory 16-inch Freedom rifle. using 55 grain Wolf. So we will put 5 rounds of 55 grain Wolf through this over the chronograph so that we can compare the difference in the velocity of the round out of this 10.5 inch barrel versus the 16-inch barrel. And so, yeah, I'm sure I've missed some specs, and if I think about them, we'll roll that in. But I kind of want to shoot my new gun, so let's get to that. All right, the inaugural shots out of the BRN-180s here on Tactical Review. Great thing is it does, though it has a reciprocating charging handle connected directly to the bolt carrier assembly, because it uses a standard AR-15 lower, you get all of the standard manual of arms that have to do with the lower receiver. Your safety, your bolt catch, all that stuff still works. So let's see what we're seeing for velocity out of this 10.5 inch barrel with the 55 grain Wolf. All right, and once again, last round bolt hold open because it uses standard AR-15 magazines and everything. Anyway, nice little gun. This will be a fantastic truck or backpack gun. Once I get like I said, a side folding stock in it, it's touch long in this configuration. And I don't know if you could hear it on the video or not while I was firing off those first 5 rounds. You see it does have more of a classic style 5.56 flash hider, 3-prong. It is a solid lower, so even though it is 3-pronged, it's really a 50%, 25%, 25% prong, which will vent gases to the sides and up, which should give us a mild compensator effect as well. But you do get that tuning fork resonance going on as these prongs vibrate. I said, I don't know if that came across on video or not, but I definitely could hear it. So anyway, I'm going to try, or I'm going to feed this some 55 grain Federal. I'm going to feed this probably some 62 grain Tula, just to get some trigger time on it, and yeah, we'll wrap it up. Okay, now we got some 62 grain Tula. If I'm remembering the specifications correctly, the BRN-180 barrels are twist and 7 rifling rate, so they should really do a great job of stabilizing heavier projectiles such as the 62 grain and even the 77 grain stuff. I don't have any of that out here. I will shoot 5 rounds over the chrono, and we'll see what the velocity deficit is that we get out of having this heavier projectile. So Alright, now we'll do some 55 grain Federal American Eagle and see what the velocity out of that looks like. And for the sake of science, since it does have an adjustable gas system, I don't have a suppressor out here with me today, but I do want to switch it over to the suppressor setting, which will, again, it'll reduce the amount of gas going into the system. That might or might not push the velocity of the bullet, but it might cause the action to not cycle without the additional back pressure of a suppressor. I don't know, I'm curious. This is the only weapon I have with an adjustable gas setting, so I just kind of want to see what goes on. All right, 55 grain American Eagle with the pistol in the suppressor setting. Okay, that's enough of that. Without the back pressure of a suppressor on there, it doesn't actually give enough gas to run the bolts, and it really doesn't appear to have that much of an effect on the velocity of the bullet. Interesting, some of you guys already knew that maybe. I did not. Today I learned. Okay, just a couple of things I want to talk about before we close down the video entirely. One of them is that I wasn't sure how this weapon system was going to work for my left-handed shooters, because obviously with the reciprocating charging handle here, there's no place to put a brass deflector. So I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera or not though, but there is brass deposit on the charging handle itself. So it would appear as though, without seeing slow motion footage from my right hand side while I was shooting, that when the round extracts and we're back here, that the charging handle functions as a brass deflector. And it would also say it's not like you're going to be getting smacked in the face, I guess is what I'm trying to say for my left-handed shooters out there. Now for takedown, obviously removing the upper from the lower functions just like any other AR-15 by virtue of the fact that we use an AR-15 lower. However, because the recoil assembly is captive, the upper receiver doesn't come apart quite like a standard AR-15. So we're going to pop this off of our lower receiver. I'm going to show you guys how to take this down just in case you get one. So what you're going to do is, once you have the upper off of the lower, because the lower does hold this back plate in place, you're just going to rack the charging handle a couple of times, just give it a good oomph. You can see that the back plate will come off, and it contains your guide rods and your recoil springs, and the recoil springs come off. So obviously if you're out here at the range, keep track of those. They're a little important for the function of the weapon. From there then, you bring the bolt carrier assembly clear to the back. There is a keyhole style opening at the back of the charging handle slot where you can remove your charging handle. And then your bolt carrier group will come out of the firearm. The bolt is more or less, or the bolt face is more or less just an AR-15 bolt. You've got a cam pin here in the side, and you can see that the bolt is spring loaded. We do have a cotter pin style firing pin keeper back here. Let's see if I can lose that out here at the range. So we will remove that, and this firing pin retainer is probably the most hated part of the AR-15. So on the one hand, it's awesome that we have that bit of parts compatibility. On the other hand, these things are terrible. If you were going to replace any one part of the AR-15 bolt carrier assembly, that should have been it. Regardless, at that point, your firing pin will come out of the bolt carrier group, and it does appear to be a standard AR-15 firing pin. At this point, we can remove our cam pin, and you can see that that is not exactly an AR-15 cam pin, even though the concept is the same. And then the bolt comes out of the bolt carrier. It's a pretty hefty chunk of metal right here. And once again, it is a spring-loaded bolt, and there are no gas rings because the gas piston is in fact out over the barrel. Hey guys, real quick, Studio Blair here, and as I was editing this video, I realized that Range Day Blair was a little scatterbrained and forgot to show you how to get into the gas piston, to show you how to take that all apart and make any adjustments or do any cleaning you need to do there. So real quick, before we let him put everything back together, we'll show you how to take that apart. Obviously, got to separate the upper from the lower. And then you do have to make sure that the bolt carrier, specifically the guide rods, have to be out of the upper in order to get to the gas piston assembly. So do that. Now then, with the bolt carrier group and recoil assembly out, we need to remove this little U bolt, or not U bolt, this little U bracket from the bottom of the handguard. It will, for the most part, just pull straight out, and you can see these little scallops here that the recoil guide rods poke through the upper receiver and fit into. So this won't come out without the guide rods out of the upper. If this U-bracket is proving difficult for you to remove, there's actually a little spot on the handguard where you could put the tip of a bullet or something in there and use that to help pry that down. And then from there, you can remove the handguard. Now, that said, it can be very stiff, and as a matter of fact, the instructions even say that the first few times you remove it, you may need to either hit the muzzle end on a table or with a dead blow hammer. I don't have a dead blow handy. I do have a table. We'll see how this goes. I'm breaking my table. Since I don't personally have a dead blow, I'm going to try the padded handle of a regular hammer. In my case, I found a hatchet first, so I am starting to get some separation. And yes, some variation of that is in fact in the instructions. Anyway, from there, you can see there's an alignment pin on the front of the receiver, and then you can disassemble the short stroke piston system into its component pieces. There we go. There's a central piece of that op rod system, and the op rod will come out of the front of the receiver. Yeah, there you go. In earlier versions of the BRN-180, they had swappable piston cups in order to switch between the suppressed and unsuppressed settings. In the new version, it does have the adjustable gas system, which I showed you while we were out at the range. Anyway, I'm going to put this back together, and in the meantime, we will go ahead and let you get back to finishing up the video out of the range. To reassemble, you just reverse, obviously making sure that your ejector claw is facing towards where the ejection port will be. Put your cam pin in. Put your firing pin in. And then put your cotter pin back across. And then obviously for reassembly, you just reverse the process. You slide your bolt carrier back up until the charging handle hole lines up. And you can push that on forward. And you put your back plate in place. Pop that on there. And then you can reassemble it to your lower receiver. And I will say, if you're putting this on a regular AR-15 lower receiver, that it will go in place with the buffer keeper pin and the buffer assembly in place. That way you can swap the upper with us onto a standard AR-15 lower, and you can have one lower for multiple uppers. But that buffer keeping pin, that spring-loaded buffer keeping pin, does make it a little fiddly to get the back end of the upper receiver pivoted down in place and to lock the takedown pin across. So when I get my SB Tactical side fold adapter in, I will be removing that buffer keeper just because I don't need it. This is a dedicated lower for this upper. But I wanted to put that out there because I know some of you folks will be running one lower and swapping uppers. So I guess one last thing, the ejection port cover is polymer. And it does automatically open, so you don't have to worry about trying to remember to open that. If say you have one in the pipe and you close your dust cover and then off safe and fire, you're not going to break that dust cover. And if you would have problems with that, Brownell does have a lifetime warranty on this upper receiver, on their lower, on the complete firearms, whatever you guys need there. So anyway, I am pretty happy with this purchase. I was able to catch it something like 12 or 15% off on the Brownell Memorial Day sale. Your mileage may vary. The truth is that I've been very excited since SHOT Show for the Palmetto State Armory JAKL, specifically looking for it in their 223 wild chambering. And I just got impatient, saw this on sale, and decided to scratch the itch for a piston operated, internally recoiled, I guess you'd say, AR upper. Hopefully I'll be able to go ahead and still get a JAKL when they come out, and we will be able to run some comparisons. But until then, I'm really happy with this. Once again, I think it will make a great truck gun or backpack gun, especially after I get this, get the side fold adapter installed. And once again, you can do that right from the beginning with other options. I just really like how the SB Tactical SBA series of braces function, and specifically I was wanting to give the SBA 4 a try because I have a couple of SBA 3s. That's a completely different discussion for another video. If you have any ideas on testing you'd like to see done out of the BRN-180 or comparisons, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. If you'd like to help directly support the channel, you can do that over at Patreon or now over on Subscribestar. You'll see those links on your screen and down in the description. If you'd like to help support the channel while at the same time spreading Second Amendment awareness, you can do that by going over and visiting the merchandise store. Pick yourself up some Tactical Review t-shirts, maybe a coffee cup, and the channel will get a couple dollars and you'll have some clothes that help show your support for the Second Amendment. If you feel like I've earned it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up on the video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube so you know when I've uploaded new content. If you feel like I've earned a thumbs down, you can hit that one too. My ego's only a little fragile, so do what you feel like you need to. Thanks for watching. Until next time, shoot straight, stay safe.